Question number 4 from the practice test. Without calculating the sum, how can you tell if the sum of two integers will be 0? Well, we know that opposite integers equal 0 when they're added. So I'm going to write that out. Opposite integers will equal 0. Whoops, 0 when added. We'll give one example. So plus 7 and minus 7. Well, we add plus 7 to minus 7. We rewrite that as plus 7. And then we have a plus and a minus, so that turns into minus 7, which will be 0. So that's easy. Opposite integers, anytime we're adding them, they're always going to equal to 0. And the next one's a little bit trickier. How can you tell if the sum of two integers is going to be negative? Well, there's a couple different circumstances. If we're adding negative integers, so let's look at minus 1 plus minus, let's say, 4. If we add that together, we're going to change it to minus 1, and that's going to turn into minus 4, which would then be minus 5. Any situation where we have two negative integers is going to be resulting in the first integer subtracting the second one. And because the first one is also negative, and the second one is subtracted as well, then we're always going to have a minus. So let's try another one. Minus 7 plus minus 2. Again, the question says, how can you tell if the sum of two integers will be negative? So sum means we're adding. So again, we're adding negative integers, so minus 7. And because we have plus minus, we'll turn into minus 2, so it'll be minus 9. So it's always going to be negative if we have two negative integers being added. What if we have a positive integer? Well, if we have two positive integers, we know that's not going to work, because clearly that's going to be positive when we're adding numbers. But we could tell that if the negative integer, if we have one negative integer, if it is larger, and we'll do, if it is larger than the other integer, and the other integer is positive, then we should have a negative number. That kind of makes sense. So this would change into negative 7 plus plus turns into a plus 6. Okay, well that'll be negative 1. So in this case, the negative integer, which I'll circle in red, was bigger than the positive integer, which is plus 6. Let's try another example the other way around. What if we have positive 9? And this time we're going to add, but the integer is going to be negative, and it's going to be, let's say, we'll make it bigger as well, so minus 12. Well, if we add that, we'll have plus 9. Then we have plus minus, which will be a minus 12. Well, that'll be negative 3. So again, the negative integer being added to the positive integer, the negative integer was bigger than the positive integer, so the answer will be negative. And that's always going to be the case. Well, how do we know if they're going to be positive? Well, clearly, case number 1, if we're adding two positive integers, so plus 7 plus 1, that clearly will be a positive integer always. What if we're adding a negative integer to a positive integer? When would it be positive? Well, it's the opposite situation of what we just did. If the positive integer, let's say it's plus 7, is bigger than our negative integer, let's make it just 1 unit smaller, so we'll make it minus 6. So if the number of the positive integer, so 7, is bigger than the number in our negative integer, then we should have a positive number. Let's try it out. Plus 7 plus minus will turn into minus 6. Well, that's right, that's going to give us plus 1. Let's try another one. Plus 4, and we want it to be bigger, the number, so 4, let's add negative 3, so 3 is smaller than 4, that turns into plus 4 minus 3, which will again be plus 1. Let's move on to number 5. There's a little bit of a mess here. Here's a different type of dartboard. A player throws 3 darts at the board. His score is the sum is the sum of the integers in the areas his darts land. Assume all 3 darts hit the board. How many different scores are possible? And then it says to find each score. So first let me erase this so we can clear out some space. And we want to find all the possible scores. This gets a little tricky. We have 3 different scores we can get. We can get plus 10 if we hit the red. We can get plus 5 if we hit the green. And the player can get minus 2 if he or she hits the, so he hits the blue. And clearly you can hit the same one more than once, right? You could hit plus 10, plus 10, plus 10. You could hit 3 times. There's no rule about hitting one number and hitting it more or less times. You can hit it all 3 times if you want. So we're going to look at dart number 1, dart number 2, and dart number 3. And we have to look at all the possible combinations. How many different ways can this happen? So let me try and do color coding. So first I'm going to choose 10, 10, 10, just to make my life easy to get started. I could do 10, 10, 10. Well, that's going to be easy. And these are plus 10s. So plus 10, plus 10, plus 10. That's one combination. Let's do another combination where we have plus 10 and plus 10 first and see how many ways we can finish it. Well, we can have, for green, we can have the third dart be a plus 5 if the first 2 are plus 10. Another way we could do this, if we had plus 10, the third dart could be instead minus 2. And that looks like all the different combinations. So there's 1, 2, 3. That's all the different combinations we can have with plus 10 being in the first 2 spots. So now let's try just plus 10 in the first spot. So plus 10 could be followed by, you could get a plus 5 and you could get another plus 5. That would be another different way we could shoot the darts. Well, we could also have plus 10 and then we could get the blue twice. Then we would get minus 2, minus 2. That's the 5th way. 6th way, we could do plus 10. We could also get plus 5 first and then minus 2 after that. Now some of you might say, well, couldn't we then write plus 10 and then instead we would get minus 2 and then we would get plus 5 after that? But these two are the same. If we're going to be adding them together, that's really the same score. The first score here has 10, plus 5, and minus 2. This score has plus 10, minus 2, and plus 5. So they still have the same numbers. So we can't include that one twice. We only can include it one time. So I think we've exhausted, and I'm going to put a line there, all the situations here where we have plus 10 in the first situation. That's the first dart. So now we can move on to situations where we have, let's say, plus 5 is the first. Well, we could get plus 5, and plus 5 again, and plus 5. We could do that. That's another way of having this go. Plus 5 in the first spot, we could do plus 5, plus 5. Now we already have over here plus 5, and 10. So we can't do that one again, but we could do plus 5, minus 2. That would be a different way to throw the darts in terms of the totals. Let's have plus 5 in the position all by itself. If we have plus 5 by itself, then over here we have plus 5 by itself and here plus 5 by itself. So we have two situations where we have plus 5 by itself. This plus 5 has 2 10s, so we have plus 5 with 2 10s here. We have plus 5 with a 10 and a negative 2, so that leaves us, we could do plus 5 with 2 negative 2s. And that should be a new way of doing things as well. And let's see if we can find one more. I think that exhausts all our possibilities. That means finishes all our possibilities with plus 5 by itself. Now we can think about minus 2, and minus 2. That's going to be another possible way of doing things. And I believe that is it. There are 10 possible combinations. Now the trick comes how to add these all up together. Well, the first one is easy. Plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 is going to give us plus 30. Well, the second one, plus 10 plus 10 plus 5, well, that's going to be plus 25. That's easy. I'm going to do all the additions first. The fourth one is plus 10 plus 5 plus 5, so that's plus 20. Easy. Going to skip down to 7. Plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 is 15 plus 15. Okay, easy. Now let's do all the negatives. There's only one. Minus 2, minus 2, minus 2. Well, that's going to clearly be minus 6. Let's go back up to number 3. Plus 10 plus 10, well, that'll give us 20. And then subtract 2, that'll give plus 18. Plus 18. Let's go to number 5. Plus 10, and then we'll take away 2 2s, so that'll give us plus 6. Number 6 will give us plus 10 plus 5 is plus 15. Minus 2 means plus 13. Let's go down to number 8. Plus 5 is plus 10. Minus 2, so that would be plus 8. And number 9 is plus 5 minus 2 minus 2, so that'll leave us with plus 1. So those are all the different scores that are possible. Number 6 here, the lowest temperature possible is approximately minus 273 degrees Celsius. The temperature at which water boils is plus 100 degrees Celsius. What is the difference? So we have to put brackets around both of these, and then we put the subtract in the middle. Then we can rewrite it as minus 273. The minus and the plus turns into a minus 100 degrees. So we would make that minus 373 degrees. So the difference between the lowest temperature possible and boiling is 373 degrees, or minus 370 degrees. Either one is fine. And if you look at a number line, it makes sense. Over here we'd have plus 100, and down here we'd have minus 273, and here we have 0. So from 273 to 0 is plus 273, and from 0 to 100 is plus 100. So there's a difference of 373 degrees.